Good afternoon. My name is David Buchanan. I'm a field service technician here at Morrell in the U.S. and have been for the last 8 years. The purpose of having you here today, and I want to thank you for taking time out of your schedule to be here, is to look at improving the in-house field service technician training here at Morrell in the U.S. As you know, Morrell started in 1982 with just 2 engineers who wanted to look at ways of improving production in the fish processing industry in Iceland. In the last 34 years, Morrell has grown from those 2 service engineers to over 4,000 people worldwide. This includes over 400 people here in the United States. But the most exponential part of this growth has happened in the last 8 years. It started with the acquisition of AEW, Delford, Scanbay, Stork, and Townsend. This acquisition of these other companies led to an increased product line that we now have to service, and also an increase in the number of service technicians that we have out in the field. Now, understanding where Morrell has come from and what we've gone through, we look at the Morrell Employee Handbook, which gives us not only corporate values and a code of conduct, but it identifies the values in which Morrell strives to do their business in. And among these core values, 2 of them are learning and excellence. In keeping with these core values, Morrell's always striving to implement strategies for improving our training program for our service technicians, because they are the face of the company in front of the customer. So when I came up with doing this project, both for school and for work, I approached Peter Peterson, Vice President of Technical Services in the United States, and discussed it with him. You know, as being a member of this team, the one thing I can say that's very positive about Morrell's in-house training program is that it is second to none in how we train our employees. I've been with the company, like I said, for a little over 8 years. In that 8 years, I've attended probably 25 or 30 of these in-house training programs, both here in the United States and overseas in some of our other offices. So, given that we have such an excellent program in training our technicians, you know, we're striving to get better at it. So how can we get better? Well, I sat down with Peter and talked about it, and there were about 8 different ideas or questions that he had about how we're doing in these training programs. The first one that he came up is, how are we actually doing in our training programs? Well, if you talk to people in management, they have one idea of how we're doing our training programs. If you talk to the service technicians, we have another. So how do we develop a baseline to determine where we're at right now in our training program? So after discussing this with Mr. Peterson, we decided the people we need to ask aren't the people in management or aren't the instructors, it's the people who are actually receiving the training, the service technicians. So our idea is we're going to go to the service technicians and see what they think about it. The second subject was, how do we develop standardized syllabuses and outlines for each training program, and what's it going to cost to develop these? It's hard to do a training program without an outline or a roadmap as to what you're going to teach the person. So this is another area that he wanted to look at and address, because basically we don't have syllabuses and outlines at this time. And the last thing is, how can we make sure that prerequisite material for each training event is collected and delivered, and make sure that it's received by the trainees before we put in the expenses for them to travel here to Lenexa or to Gainesville or Des Moines, which are our 3 major offices in the U.S., and do these programs. Okay? So, how do we figure it out? Well, we're going to address this one step at a time. The first question is, how are we doing in our program? What we did is we designed a questionnaire, and we distributed it to all the service technicians out of the Lenexa, Kansas office. And it collected the data and the feedback from these questionnaires so that we could get a basic idea of where we are at in the program. Now, once we've collected this data, we'll have to determine if the syllabuses or outlines, or if you will, roadmaps to each training program already exist in another Morel business unit in the world, or if we're going to have to develop these individually on our own. And the last subject he wanted to talk about was after the development of these syllabuses for each training program, how do we ensure the delivery of the prerequisite materials, such as software and tools, and make sure that these people have all this stuff before they get to the training site? Well, the first thing we did, like I said, was we put together this questionnaire. The questionnaire consisted of 21 questions, and you'll actually find a copy of the questionnaire in Appendix B in the back of the folder there that you have. We collected this data on a blind but anonymous basis. Basically, the only person that can tie back an individual questionnaire to an individual person is me, as the researcher. That information is not available to Morel for any reason at any time. We did this to ensure that the participants are anonymous, so there can be no feedback, no blowback on them if we don't like what they put down in their paper. It also enhances the honesty in the responses that they gave us. Now, there were 17 out of the 46 questionnaires that we sent out that were actually returned. Of these 17 returned, 19 in-house training sessions had been attended by the technicians. 12 of these training sessions were within each technician's assigned focus group. Each technician, as you know, is assigned to a specific group, such as portioning or grading or product inspection. So as we can see, a lot of these training sessions were actually in the group, in their focus group area. There were also 6 training sessions that were outside of their focus group. The purpose of this is cross-training. So in case one focus group gets real busy, we've got other technicians that can actually fill into that particular focus group. Out of the 17 return questionnaires, Morel has a program called e-learning, which is an online-based training program. Out of all these responses, only 3 trainees, or 27% of the trainees coming in for the in-house training services, had actually completed the prerequisite e-learning for the session that they were getting ready to attend. Only 4, or 36% of these people, had received outlines or syllabuses prior to starting the training session. So basically, 36% of these people knew what we were going to cover in the assigned training session when they arrived on site. The other 64% may have had a clue, but they didn't have an outline that tells us what we're going to look at, what we're going to focus on, and what we're going to learn. 5 of these trainees, now they did receive their outline and syllabuses during the first day of training. And only 3 of these people were made aware of the software or tools that are needed for the training session prior to each training session. And we'll get more into this in a few minutes as to what that's costing us. 36% of the trainees reported that the training sessions were disrupted by the downloading of software or getting the required tools. This is where we go back to the previous question. This costs us a lot of money because we're spending time doing stuff that should have been done before the person ever came on site for the training session. 36% of these training sessions did not designate a skill level for the participants. What we're talking about when we say skill levels is this person at a basic, an intermediate, advanced, or an expert level in their training. What will happen is if you have everybody at the same skill level that's going through the training, we're going to have a more positive response and a more positive experience in the transfer of learning. If the trainees or the technicians are at all different skill levels, we're going to lose time because this person already knows stuff that we're having to go back and cover for the people in the basic level. So your advanced people, if you've got a bunch of people at a basic level and advanced or an expert level in the same class, the people that are experts or at their expert level have a tendency of becoming bored and their mind wanders off. Just the opposite is true for the people in the beginning. If we don't go back and cover the basic concepts, then these people are going to be lost from the start. And they're just going to be in the dark about what we're talking about sometimes, especially with some of the more advanced technical data. Now, a good positive here is all training sessions were reported to have started on time, which in the next office means 8 a.m. in the morning in the office. And all but one training session where there was a syllabus or outline provided, all but one actually did follow the outline and syllabus. That shows us how important having outlines and syllabuses are. They keep us on track to our goal, which is the transfer of knowledge for this particular session. Now, one thing we did was we asked everybody about their instructors in the training sessions. How well did they rate on the subject matter that they were teaching? Well, when we added up the numbers and crunched the data, it came out that the average was 4.7 on a scale of 1 to 5. If we extrapolate this on out to, such as in a classroom situation in school, transferred up to a 100-point scale, we come out that the instructor scored a 94%, which is a solid A. That's a good thing. Our instructors do know what they're talking about. The presentation of the material was rated a little bit lower at 4.3 on a scale of 1 to 5, which comes out to about 87.2%. That's a B. So this is an area that we might need to work in. How we're presenting the material. Are we presenting it in a way that's easy to learn? Are we presenting it in a way that's confusing the people? Moving on, all training sessions were reported to have the correct equipment available for use in the Innovation Center for hands-on training. This is something that we're very good at doing. We have a lot of different types of equipment in the Innovation Center, and we're doing a very good job at making sure that we have the equipment available for the people to actually get hands-on experience with it. Now, 64% of the training sessions, either a trainee or an instructor was pulled from the training session to attend or handle other morale business. This is a disruption. It stops the flow of the class when we have to pull out either a trainee or, in many cases, the actual instructor was pulled out of the class to handle other business. This distraction is costing us a lot of money. We'll look at that later on in the analysis. Now, 42% of the classes, there was no evaluation of the transfer of knowledge between the instructor and trainees. Now, we all know that training is a two-way street. The instructor learns from the trainees, and the trainees learn from the instructor. But how much was learned, especially with our trainees? How much did they really get out of this class? 42% of the time, there's no test or evaluation given in these training sessions. So basically, we don't know if they learned all the concepts that we wanted them to learn. At the completion of the training sessions, only 40%, I'm sorry, indicated that they were asked to complete an instructor evaluation. This instructor evaluation not only rates the instructor on how well they're presenting the material and their knowledge, it's also looking at, is there something that we need to change in the outline or the syllabus to facilitate a greater transfer of knowledge. Now 90%, and this is a pet peeve of mine, 90% of the trainees indicated that they were not presented a certificate of completion upon successfully completing the training session. Well, if we go back, only 42% of them said that they were actually given an evaluation. So how can we actually give them certificates saying that they completed everything successfully or satisfactorily? This is very important. Yes, some of the technicians will take their certificate, throw it in a drawer, throw it in the round file over here, but a large majority of them will take them and hang them on their wall. It's something to be proud of. It's a motivational thing. You're identifying that they have reached this level of competency in this piece of equipment, and they're proud of it. And it adds to their motivation, which adds to a better service rapport with our customers. Let's move on up here. Sorry about that. Now on a scale of 1 to 10, the trainees rated the overall satisfaction of the training sessions as 7.75. This is easy math to do to extrapolate it out to a 100-point system. 77.5%. If you're in college or high school, that's a C. That's not good. We're getting the job done, but we're not excelling at it. And remember, one of our core values is excellence here at Morrell. And this number says that we're not excelling at what we're doing in our training program. Now, the last question on the test was an open comment question. You can actually see all the comments there in the report in front of you that were provided. But these open comments basically reinforced the data that we collected from the questionnaire. There are areas that we're doing a very good job in, but there are some areas of concern that we need to address. Now, addressing the second area of concern, which is how do we develop standardized syllabuses and training programs for each training program? What will it cost to develop these programs? What I had to do was address and discuss with our business units in other countries and our corporate offices to find out if these outlines or syllabuses actually existed somewhere else. In my research, I found that no, these syllabuses and outlines do not exist. In speaking with our training department in Iceland, I was told that they prefer to leave that up to each individual business unit because of the different environments and production requirements in each area. Such as here in the United States, we do things a lot different than they do in Asia or in Africa or Europe. So there currently doesn't exist a database of this. So it's going to be necessary for us for Morrell to establish the required material for these training programs. The third area of concern, is how can we make sure that prerequisite material for each training session is delivered and received by the trainees. There is currently a database of current e-learning module completion for each training, for each trainee or each technician that we have here at Morrell. The determination of the required prerequisite material, though, cannot be determined until we have an outline or syllabus for each training program based upon skill level required and prerequisite material required. Once we have these outlines and syllabuses and prerequisite material determined, then we can come up with a method of delivery for this information to the trainees. Our recommended plan of action. Prerequisite e-learning modules for each training session must be verified. It's all in a database on the server. When we get a person, we get a list that says we need to put this person, this person, this person, and this person in a training session. The next step needs to be, have they done their e-learning? It takes just a couple minutes to verify this. Get on the server, log in, see where they're at. Make your decision. If they haven't got their prerequisite e-learning done, then they need to be informed well in advance. They need to get this done. Or if there's not a way for them to get it done, we need to pull them out and assign that spot to somebody else. The cost of verifying this will be less than $100 per session. It takes 15 minutes to pull it up on the database. The outline and trailing syllabuses required software and tools need to be delivered to the trainees prior to their arriving at the training site. The cost of this is relatively minor once we have the established outline, syllabuses, and prerequisites. All it's going to take is that the instructor, one day prior to the training session, which we value that time at $1,090 per day, the instructor emails these outlines and syllabuses out, emails the required software, and informs the trainee of the special tools that they may need. That's all it's going to take is one day. It's more than offset by the training time that's lost during each training session. Training sessions need to be designated basic, intermediate, advanced, and expert to maximize time management during the training session. We've already discussed a little bit about how when you have beginners and experts in the same class, one or the other has a very good probability of either being bored or getting lost. And then we're going to I don't like to use the word waste, but we're going to use time to backtrack to what should have been a previous training session to bring these people up to date on their skills so that they can understand the concepts that we're presenting during this training session. The associated cost with determining knowledge level of prospective trainees should be less than $150, basically about an hour's worth of time, because there is a technical knowledge database on the server here that rates each person, each trainee, or each technician on each machine at what experience level, whether they're basic, whether they're intermediate, whether they're advanced or they're experts. So it just takes just a second to look this up on each person. I'm doing an M3000 grader class. It's an advanced class. I can go in and pull up the people that are on my trainee list and say, oh, well, this person's only a beginning, or this person's an expert. This is going to be kind of a review for him. So it's real simple and real easy and quick to do. During training sessions, cell phones must be turned off. Well, not must, but they need to be muted. We don't need cell phones and email alerts going off constantly. And along that same line, because we do use laptops in the class, email notifications and Facebook notifications on your laptop needs to be muted. We don't need the constant barrage of alerts saying that you're getting an email, because I know we all get a lot of emails every day. Also, participants do not need to be disturbed by outside activities. When you're in a training session, you're there to learn, or you're there to instruct. You don't need to be pulled out of the class to take care of other business. The cost of losing 1 hour for 5 trainees per training session with 50 training sessions per year is $34,000 a year. I have been in training sessions that we have lost considerably more than just an hour from disruptions, from people being pulled out of class, from cell phones going off constantly. This is money that we're spending that we don't need to spend. If we're losing this kind of time in a training session, could we not have the entire class there half a day less? That's a lot of money right there. So we need to minimize these disruptions. At the end of each training class, evaluations need to be done for the trainees and for the instructors. And then they need to be completed and evaluated at the completion of the class. The cost of evaluating tests and then using the results to evaluate transfer of knowledge of the training session should take about 4 hours at the end of the training session. If it's an all-day training session, then it'll take about 4 hours the next morning with the instructor and our Vice President of Technical Service, Mr. Peterson. They sit down, they look at what the people had to say about the training class, what the people had to say about the instructor. That way we can make decisions. Do we need to modify our outline and syllabus? Do we need to put more concentration on a specific area of what we were trying to teach? Like I said, this will take about 4 hours per training session, or about $545 per session. Each trainee that successfully completes the training session must be presented a certificate of completion. This is a motivational issue. I am being awarded a certificate for my effort, for the job that I've been doing. This is very important to the overall morale and the personal contract between the company and the individual technician. We're recognizing you for doing a good job. It's that good loved feeling. The cost of preparing these certificates would probably be less than $100 in materials and time. We can print them up right there in the office. We have the paper, we have the people to do it. All it takes is fill in the blanks and print them out and present them to the people. Outlines and syllabuses must be developed for each training program to maximize the potential for transfer of knowledge of the required subject matter. Now these syllabuses and outlines will have to be prepared from either syllabuses or outlines that already exist, because we're currently doing training programs. And we know that the technicians are saying, well, yeah, I'm getting training outlines and syllabuses for some of the programs. So we know some of them already exist. So what we're going to have to do is we're going to have to go out there and we're going to have to find out, talk to the instructors from past training sessions, and get a copy of their syllabus or their outline. That way we don't have to go back and recreate these. We can look at them, evaluate them, and say, hey, this is a good one, let's use it. Okay? If we can't find these outlines or syllabuses because they don't exist, or if it's a training program for a new piece of equipment, we're going to have to establish them. And the easiest way to do it, we have over 89 different types of equipment or pieces of equipment in our current inventory. We can't just take the time right now to develop them all. Number one, we wouldn't be doing any service work because we'd all be sitting at a desk somewhere trying to put together a training program. So what we need to do is develop these as we go along. So if Peter comes out and says we're going to do an M3000 advanced class in 3 weeks, and we look and we don't have an established outline or syllabus for it, whoever the instructor is for that class will sit down with the focus group leader for the grading group, and they'll sit down and spend an afternoon or a day or 2 days putting together this program for this specific training program. Once we've done that, it's entered into a database, so we don't have to do it again anymore. All we have to do is go back and tweak it or modify it when we see that there's a need to modify it. But the important thing is we get it into a database. So the next person that has to do an M3000 advanced class as an instructor can pull it up. I have it right here. So now I can get it out to the people that's going to be in my training session. Okay. This outline and syllabus needs to include all the prerequisite requirements and a list of all required software and tools necessary for the training session. Software is a key here. If you're having to download something like CX Programmer for a iCut class, it can take 2 or 3 hours to download the entire CX Programmer suite. We don't have time to spend sitting in the office waiting on 5 or 6 trainees to download CX Programmer. That needs to be done beforehand. That's why it's important that this is all part of our outlines and syllabuses. Now the cost of this, to develop all this, will be based upon 2 days to develop the outlines or syllabuses and about half a day to evaluate it at the completion of the training session. Based upon $1,090 per person per day, that's $2,725 per training session. This will be more than offset by the increase in skill levels and knowledge base of our technicians, and the fact that the technicians can now offer that increased knowledge and skill base to our customers, making for a happier customer. This enhanced trust and knowledge that Morel's service technicians is an asset not only to Morel, but an asset to our partnership with our customers. It will result in an increase in product sales based upon the quality of the service before, after, and during the sale. And that's what we're here for, to service our customers, to sell them and make sure that there's a trust between our customers and ourselves, that we can take care of all of their needs. To ensure that prerequisite material for each training event is delivered and received by the trainees, training syllabuses and outlines and prerequisite material must be developed. The development of this training outline and syllabuses with the development of these syllabuses and outlines and prerequisite material, once that is done, the instructor for each class will be able to take one day, 7 to 10 days prior to the start of the training session, and contact through email, by phone, every trainee assigned to that class, and make sure that here's your syllabus, here's your outline. You need to go to this website and download this software. You need to make sure you bring these tools with you so you can successfully complete the training program. The cost of that's going to be the cost of one day for that instructor, so $1,090. This cost is more than offset by the 1 to 2 hours of training time for 5 trainees spent downloading or locating the proper software and tools after the training session is started. Overall, with the help of the service team here, we've been able to identify areas that we can improve. Although implementing these plans, these recommended plans of action, is going to require an investment in time and money, I believe that we will reap the benefits from it by improving our our customer relationship that we have. The more that our customers trust us with knowing that they can call us up at any time of the day and they can get a technician on the phone or on site that is an expert on their piece of equipment and can get them back up and running in just a matter of sometimes just minutes, it builds this trust. This enhanced trust leads to more sales, leads to a better customer relationship. Now, in conclusion, I want to thank Peter Peterson, Vice President of Technical Services here at Morrell in the U.S., Bobby Shepard, Technical Services Manager, the field service team here at Morrell, and the Morrell training teams worldwide. Now, if you have any questions, I'll be more than happy to answer them. We can discuss some of these recommendations here, and also discuss, if you want to discuss further in depth, some of the data that we collected, we can do that. Thank you for your time.